Are you tired of playing small and ready to step confidently into your greatness and share your unique brilliance with the world? Well, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sabine Gedeon, and I've dedicated nearly 2 decades to empowering individuals and leaders as they confidently navigate the twists and turns of life and career transitions. If you're seeking direction, connection, or just a little push to play bigger, consider this podcast your VIP pass to a community that genuinely understands your journey. Join me every week for candid conversations and practical guidance designed to help you navigate the challenges of life and business, foster a growth mindset, and cultivate meaningful connections. It's time to embrace your inherent power, define your unique purpose, and prosper in every aspect of your life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Leading with Power and Purpose. I'm your host, Sabine Gedeon, and I am excited to be back on this mic with you. So at the time of this recording, we have just wrapped up the Women in Power series. It is December 1st, Wednesday of December. And yeah, we're down to just a few more weeks of 2024. And so I'm excited to be on today. I definitely want to do a quick recap of the last 17 weeks of the Women in Power series, and then give you a couple of takeaways just based on the conversations that we've had. So for those of you who are completely new, I'm Sabine Gedeon. I'm an executive coach, leadership development consultant, speaker, author, and a couple of other things. And I have been hosting the show almost 3 years. At the end of January will be our 3-year anniversary. And just this year, the podcast itself has gone through a lot of transition and a lot of transformation as yours truly, has gone through a lot of transformation and transition. And so I want to definitely talk about what's next. But for those of you who have been writing for a long time, if you've noticed the change from She Leads Now to Power, Purpose, and Prosperity, and to now Leading with Power and Purpose. Hopefully that hasn't been too confusing over the last several months, but just know that the show is still the same. The heart of the show is still the same. In some ways, there will be some shifts, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we go down. But I just wanted to step in today and do a brief recap of the Women in Power series. So for those of you who have been, dedicated subscribers, for the last 17 weeks, I released the series that I had recorded with women at all levels, mostly at the executive level of their careers or CEOs within their businesses. And we've been having this conversation and kind of exploring, what does it mean to be powerful? And part of that required them to answer 3 questions, or one question in particular, but 3 different segments: how they define power, authority, and influence. And as you've heard, if you've listened, if you have not caught up on the series, please feel free to do so. I believe we started at episode 124. Up until this most recent one of 140. So Dr. Kumar was the first one, and then we just wrapped up with Marianne Matteries. But anyways, during the series, this question was given to a lot of these women in advance. However, some of them, they needed some time to think about it, and they kind of gave their answers on the flow. And we had really, really great discussions. I learned a lot. I learned how to see things differently, specifically from people who had different experiences from me. Lynn Whitbeck is one that I forever will remember our conversation. For someone who was shown what it looked like to have agency and authority, and dare I say control over her decisions at a very young age. It was very interesting to see not only just how she defined those 3, but how she carried herself and carried her life, and the doors that I won't even say opened for her, that she opened as a result of having some of those earlier messages versus others like myself, who those weren't the messages that we had. And it may have not necessarily been negative messages, but we just didn't know that it was okay to be powerful, that it was okay to be authoritative. And we all know that the environment that we're in, the society that we're in, that's definitely not the messaging that is shared with young girls. So it was a very, very interesting series. I do think it was also extremely powerful, especially given the time that it was released. Believe it or not, I had decided with my team that we would release this sometime in July, and literally the week that I told my team that we're going to start releasing the series, that later that week or that weekend, that's when Biden announced his withdrawal from the presidency, and Kamala was able to step up. So it was very interesting to see how society, let's put it that way, how society responded explicitly around their beliefs around power. And when I say society, I'm talking about men and women. It was just very interesting to hear the conversations. I will say I shielded myself quite a bit just because I'm all about protecting my peace this year and every year moving forward. And so I'm definitely not a political person. I was not having any conversations about it, but there was enough in the atmosphere to hear and to pick up. And my goal, my hope in releasing the series was really to help women collectively get to a place where we started to examine the beliefs that we were carrying that were either serving us or not serving us as it related to power and standing in authority and having influence. And that all ties back to leadership. It's all built around, who do you believe you are? How are you leading? How are you showing up? How are you leading yourself first and foremost? And so it's been a very interesting season to see how these conversations have now translated into, what I knew was part of broader society, but also it reinforced for me the importance of having these conversations, defining these. They're not terms. They're not just terms because there are emotions attached to them. If you listen to any of the interviews, you'll hear, depending on childhood or earlier experiences, people attach certain emotion to these words, and those emotions either serve them in that they stayed away from it, or or to this day they don't acknowledge it, they don't want to acknowledge it, or it helped them lean into it. Either way, I think fundamentally we as a human race, we both sides have the capacity, the authority to lead, to be authoritative, to be influential, to be powerful, to be whatever you want to name in there. And I just think that the more of us who can awaken to the truth that power, authority, influence, whatever you want to call it, is not something that is controlled from the outside or given to us or bestowed upon us from external factors, that it is in fact something that we have to draw from within, then perhaps we could start to see the shifts in the power dynamics throughout our society. So that's about the series. If you haven't listened up, or if you haven't caught up, I know the holidays are coming, so this would be a great time if you want to catch up. Really, really powerful, impactful conversations. And just a special thank you to each and every one of the women who said yes to having this conversation. I know I learned the hard way that this is not an easy discussion for many people to have, especially those who, one, had whatever emotions around those particular words. And so I'm grateful for those who said yes, for those who have done their work, for those who are at the place where they've defined it and they're living it in whatever truth that is for them. So thank you to those who said yes. And I know there are a few episodes that I did not release just because of timing. There are more episodes recorded, and for the timing that I wanted to run the series, there are a few that haven't been released, and I may release them for like another short bonus mini series just to honor the women in their time. But the 17 that are posted are the ones that made it through the time frame that I had. And so be sure to check those out. So along those lines too, I just wanted to kind of recap. I'm not going to recap what everyone said because, one, I don't remember and I didn't go back and listen to every one of them, but I just wanted to give you some tangible, practical steps for you to take as it relates to leaning into your own power, owning your own power for yourself. As you heard, if you listen to the series, a lot of the women, or majority of the women, agreed that power is something that is internally sourced, and some, they're still figuring that out. But I do think that, as with anything, right, it starts from within. And so I just wanted to give you, if you've listened to this series, or if you're going to listen to the series and it still feels so, for lack of a better term, like esoteric, right? Like you can't really grasp like what it is that you can do for yourself to start to build that. Especially if you don't have anyone around you, or those just have not been the messages that you've been exposed to. Just kind of wanted to give you a couple of things to do and some prompts to think through so that you can work through for yourself in defining what power is, what power looks like, defining, how to own your own power, and, how to show up in the world as the powerful you that you are. And so this is in no particular order, just a list of 8 things, 8 steps, 8 strategies, whatever you want to call it, that you can implement in your day to day, not all at once, of course, but just throughout time, to really just start to build that confidence and that knowing of your power, and to be able to draw from it, whether it is to show up authoritatively, or to show up influential, or to show up whatever, but to know and understand for yourself where your power comes from and how to draw from it. So first and foremost, in terms of owning your power, it's really owning your accomplishments. We as women, we do a lot. We do a lot, and we forget all of the things that we do. And this applies to men and women. But of course, this particular series was around women in power. So, own your accomplishments. Think about 3 accomplishments that you're most proud of. How did your skills, how did your resilience, how did your determination to succeed contribute to your actual success? And I'm inviting you to write down these accomplishments and revisit them regularly. I've talked about this, especially when I was doing career coaching, having your brag book, right? So that you weren't waiting until the end of the year to fill out your performance review and remember what it is that you've done. But I think, whether we're leading in corporate, we're leading in our personal lives, we're leading in business, there's so much that we do. And for those who follow me, a lot of you are similar to me, type A. You get through the goal, you work hard, and then you're on to the next thing. And sometimes, when we do that and we don't take the time to, 1, celebrate those accomplishments, but 2, when we're in that hard space of achieving a goal, having something to remind you of what you've done in the past, of how you've overcome challenges to meeting goals in the past, is really helpful, and really serves to boost your confidence and give you that extra kick that you need to continue to move forward. So first and foremost, in terms of owning your power, own your accomplishments, write them down, revisit them regularly, as many times as you need to. I said write 3. If you can think of 50, write all 50 down, whatever it is that you need, so that when you're in those messy middle moments of achieving something, or going after something, or if you're scared of moving forward and raising your hand for something, you have physical, tangible evidence to remind you of, times in the past where you've stepped out, or you leaped, or you succeeded despite the odds. So first one, own your accomplishment. Second one, redefine power on your own terms. So you heard 17 brilliant women define power. I defined it every now and then within the conversations, but redefine power on your own terms. Everyone has their own definition. We all give meanings to words, to things, based on our own experiences. And for a very long time, and you look out in our society, power is definitely not necessarily a friendly thing. It's not portrayed friendly. It's not portrayed in a positive light. Even when we look at like superhero movies, right? Even though the hero is, we all cheer for the hero, no one walks out like, oh, that hero was so powerful, right? That's not usually the word that we attribute to the hero, even if they are fighting, a big giant or multiple whatevers. We talk about their courage, right? We talk about their grit. We talk about their resilience. We talk about all these things, but in actuality, that's a form of power. So I say all that to say, ask yourself, right? This is the prompt. How do you personally define power? And what does powerful mean to you in life and in work? Because it could look different. It could look different in both cases. But creating that clarity for yourself, and then create a power statement. And this power statement can, be something to the effect of power means using my voice to inspire others and create meaningful change, right? Or power means leveraging my resources to support those who are less advantaged. Power means creating a life for me and my family. Whatever that is for you, define what power is, and then create your power statement. Again, this is something that you're going to go back to because we're going to have those days where we don't feel powerful. We don't feel in our glory and our unique brilliance. And so having that power statement to anchor you and to reaffirm who you are and, what you're able and capable to do. The next one is to build a supportive network. I heard this several times throughout the interviews, that part of what allows some of the women that were interviewed to stay in their power, to maintain their power, to remember how powerful they are, is the fact that they have a supportive community, whether that be family, friends, colleagues, whatever it is, but they have people around them to mirror back to them how amazing they are, especially when they're down in the dumps. So, I advise you to surround yourself with mentors, peers, allies, whoever who uplifts you and who challenge you. It could be a strong, it could be a woman-focused support system, or it could be any type of support system. But just make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who see your brilliance, who will remind you of your brilliance in those moments that you need it the most. And then also that you trust in those moments where you're not feeling so brilliant. You trust them with your vulnerability. You trust them with your nakedness, as I like to call it, so that they can be that support for you. They can wrap you in their love and their admiration and in their support. The fourth one up is set boundaries without guilt. My God, if this hasn't been the year of boundaries, I thought 2023 for me was the year of setting boundaries, but 2024, it was like 2023. I made the decision that I would start setting boundaries. In 2024, I was tested on whether or not I really valued the boundaries that I had created or decided that I was going to set for myself. But in any case, being at the end of 2024, I feel like I'm finally at that place, or maybe at just the beginning, where, now when I set a boundary, I don't make it to mean anything about myself or the other person other than this is what I need right now. And I'm going to give to myself what I need first and foremost. So the blame, the guilt, the shame, all of the emotions that used to come with setting boundaries, they're minimized. Let's just put it that way. They still show up sometimes depending on the person, but it's certainly nowhere near as loud as it used to be. So, the prompt here is to ask yourself, where in your life do you need to set clearer boundaries to protect your energy and your time? And taking that a step further, what's one boundary that you can set this week? What's one thing that has been annoying you, bothering you, keeping you up, whatever, that is within your control to manage and to change and to shift? And so, the invitation here is to identify where you can create some boundaries, and then set one that you're going to start, you're going to reinforce, you're going to communicate on a regular basis starting this week. This time of year, especially being, the holiday season, you're going to get a lot of invitations for stuff, right? Everybody's having something. And then there's also a whole lot of, shopping requests, right? Everybody wants you to buy their product, buy their course, buy their whatever. And so this is really for you to get clear on what's serving me and what's not serving me, and being okay with saying no, and detaching your no from your emotions or the other person's emotions, and just getting to the place where it just doesn't align. It just doesn't align. I had somebody reach out a couple weeks ago and invited me to this event. And, I looked at it several times, and I just had to take a moment, and I stopped and I was like, okay, Sabine, do you really want to go to this? And the answer was like, no. And then I asked the second question, well, why not? Why don't you want to attend this particular thing? And it was just like, it doesn't align. Like, there's no alignment. It's not resonating with me. And once I got to that decision, I was just like, oh, okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me to this thing. At this time, this doesn't necessarily resonate with where I'm focused on right now, but I appreciate the invitation. And again, there was no emotion. In the past, there would have been like, oh my gosh, how can I write this so that it's kind and she understands and that. No, there wasn't any of that. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't align. Thank you, though. I appreciate you thinking of me. So setting boundaries without the guilt, that is a process. For some of you, it may not take that long. It's taken me a year and a half. And I'm grateful to have walked through that process. And here's the funny thing. All of the thoughts that I used to have before about what people were going to think and how they were going to react and all that, none of that is true. I mean, in some cases, people do get in their feelings, but I don't own that. And neither do you. So set boundaries without guilt. Next one up, speak up and be heard. This actually came through very loud and clear during the last episode with Marianne Matarese, who is in the talent space for Indeed.com. And it was really around, we got almost to the end of the conversation. And, we circled back somehow around, power and her finding her voice. And I paused and I asked her, I was like, well, how did you find your voice? Because oftentimes, again, when we think about power, when power is portrayed or when messages around power are put out there, like no one gets into the nitty gritty. And sometimes with the setting boundaries and saying, no, that doesn't resonate, that's owning your power. Or, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. That's owning your power. Or, you know what, I'd like to do X. That's also owning your power. So feeling comfortable with speaking up and allowing yourself to be heard. There is power in our voice. And so practice advocating for yourself in meetings, negotiations, conversations. Start with small steps. So if you're in a team meeting and you have a thought, being okay with saying, hey, I just a thought here, and sharing that. Using your voice really encourages you or reinforces your value and encourages others to recognize your contribution. So, think about, as a prompt, think about in the coming week or so, what's one idea, opinion, or request you've been hesitant to share? And ask yourself or create a plan to express it confidently this week. And this could be in your personal life. This could be in your professional life, something that you've been dying to ask, or you've been eagerly waiting to express that you haven't because it wasn't the right time, or you were afraid, or whatever the case may be. I'm inviting you to set a goal to actually just do it, get through it, and understand that the response, and I know this is sometimes easier said than done, especially when we value the opinion of the person that we may have to, have this conversation with, but you don't own their emotion. And for us to try to control other people's emotions is really not fair. And that is a form of manipulation. And so if you say something, or if you express something, or you ask something, and someone gets mad or they get angry or whatever that emotion is, they are within their right to feel that. We have no right to try to control or manipulate anyone else's emotions. Now, also understand that that's not an emotion that's targeted towards you. That is an emotion that is within themselves. And quite frankly, if they don't express it, they're going to repress it, and it's going to show up 10 times worse at the worst moment. So I just want to give you that encouragement, because I know, again, as women, we're conditioned to think about others, to be nurturing, to sometimes tiptoe around other people's emotions. And that not only hurts us, but it hurts the other person, because they are within their right to have and express emotions. You are within your right not to take on the emotions that they're expressing. So then the next one is reframe self-doubt. This is a lifelong process for many of us. But we all have a negative Nancy or negative Nelly or inner critic, whatever you want to call it at times. And so the way to overcome this, and I actually just was coaching someone earlier today who, they wanted to pursue something. And as they're telling me the things that they wanted to pursue, I kept hearing all the, but this, but this, but this, but this. And I knew it was the inner critic that was talking them out of it. And so what I invited them to do is what I'm inviting you to do. Ask yourself, what evidence do you have to challenge this belief? Like, how can you reframe it into a more positive affirmation? So in this particular case, the person wanted to do something else and they felt like, well, typically people in this role are at this level, they're not looked on like that. And so the question for her was, okay, well, have you ever seen someone at this level or in this space be able to do something different? And once you can build that evidence, it just neutralizes that negative self-talk. So, when you find yourself saying, I want to do this, but whatever comes after the but, that is your limiting belief. That is your self-limiting belief. And so catch yourself when you hear that but and whatever comes after. Has there been anyone else that you've witnessed, whether you know personally or you can go online and Google, who has done the very thing that you want to do? If the answer is yes, then yes, you can do it. And any other reasons why you can't, it's going to be neutralized. And if you want to hold on to that belief, you're well within your right to believe that, but just know it's not the truth. It's not the truth. It's just the thing that you're choosing to believe. So awareness and self-accountability is so critical to owning and standing in your power, because a lot of the things that we don't have or we tell ourselves we can't have or we can't do, it's not because anyone else is saying it. It's because we've adopted the belief that we can't or we don't have. Because if you can look around and someone else has it, chances are you can have it too, if you want it. And then seventh one is focus on growth and not perfection. And so I know I'm speaking to my people here, that part of owning your power, we're on a journey. And this is just my belief. Like, this life is a journey. If we knew everything, life would be boring. Life would be absolutely boring. Every day is a brand new day to learn something new. And guess what? When we fall or when we fail or when we don't hit a goal, we have not lost. If anything, we've learned what not to do. Thomas Edison's, I have not failed 10,000 times. I've just found 10,000 times or 10,000 ways that don't work. That is such a great way to describe what this life is like. Because if we were really honest, we harp on what we call the big failures, right? Or the public failures. But let's be honest, we're failing by the minute most days, right? We just don't attribute failure to certain things because, one, maybe it wasn't as embarrassing or it wasn't as painful or whatever the case may be. But we can look at the bigger things in that same light. And so, I'm inviting you to shift your mindset away from have to get this perfect to I get to learn as I go. I get to just take risks. I get to try new things. Think of the challenges, right, as opportunities to learn. And again, I know it's not always as easy to do this in the moment, but my question to you is, would you rather be in this state of negative energy and negative emotion of feeling bad, feeling like a failure, feeling the disappointment, feeling the sadness? Not to say that you're not within your right to feel those, you are, but do you want to stay there? Would you rather stay in that light and that energy, or would you prefer to allow yourself the opportunity to move into, well, okay, you know what? I didn't get it this time. Move into hope, move into opportunity, move into possibility. We have that ability. We absolutely have that ability. Feel your feels. Don't get me wrong. There have been several L's this year, right? And even in those L's, they were still blessings, right? It's my choice. It's the way that I'm choosing to look at them. Yes, there were losses, but there are a ton of wins as well. And so focus on your growth, focus on your progress. If you can look at who you are today, and I'm saying who you are in terms of how you think, what you've been able to accomplish, who you are, your presence, your influence, if you can look at who that person is today and see such a drastic difference, or maybe not even drastic, but see a difference from who you were this time last year, that's progress. That's growth. We want to be on the mountaintop. We think we've progressed when we're on the mountaintop. No, if you're not at step 0 and you're now step 5, that's progression. And so focus on that. Don't focus on how much more you have to go, but look back. This is the perfect time of year. And towards in a couple of weeks, we'll do the word of the year exercise that I've done the last couple of years. But this is the time to start reflecting on your growth, on your progress, the lessons learned that came in the form of disappointment, failure, sadness, whatever, loss. But also recognize that as long as you're still moving forward, you're still progressing. So, and then the last one is invest in your development. This goes without saying, but apparently I need to say it. In order for us to grow, we can't grow in a vacuum, right? Like if we knew everything that we needed to know, life would be boring. And so while life will give us opportunities, will give us lessons, will give us people, will give us experiences for us to learn and grow, we also have the capacity to decide and be proactive in our growth. So, as we're slowing down for some of us towards the end of the year, this is the time to, think about what courses can I take, what workshops. Obviously, during this time of year, everyone has a program or whatever on sale. And so just be discerning, but, ask yourself, in this time. And for some of you, you may have had a year where you don't want to do anything. This is your rest season, and that's completely fine as well. But, in order for us to grow, our growth happens inside before it's ever reflected externally. I was coaching a group, and one of the people asked, well, how do you grow to develop when you don't want to advance, right? Meaning like they didn't want to necessarily climb the ladder, but they wanted to continue to grow and develop in who they were. And, I gave them a couple of recommendations, but then the last thing that I said was, at the end of the day, you may not have the intention of advancing as you're growing and as you're developing, but it is a byproduct. There is no way that you can invest in yourself and in resources and money and coaching and whatever and not see that growth reflected outwardly, whether that's in your relationships, in your career, anything else. So the intention doesn't even have to be advancement for advancement to happen, because what you feed, if you feed yourself, you feed your mind, you feed your soul, trust and believe that's going to be reflected back to you in great ways. And so, I'll just recap the 8 that I shared. And I'm going to create actually I've created a guide. I'm just going to make it pretty before I put it out there. And I'll let you all know when that is available, but it has some very detailed prompts around this content and just how to own your power. Because I think going into 2025, if we didn't learn the lesson in 2024, that power is not given. Power is not given. It is absolutely not given. Power is something that we draw from within and we express outwardly. And so if you've listened to this last series, if you've just been riding with me through my journey of discovering or uncovering or remembering my own internal power, like you're definitely at the place where, there's no more time for entertaining feeling less than powerful. And so just to recap, it's number 1 is own your accomplishments, write them down, keep them nearby. 2, redefine power on your own terms. What does power mean to you? How do you want it to show up? And then what is your power statement, your own personal power statement? Build a supportive network. Who are the people that are around you who will remind you of your brilliance, of your power and when you need it the most? Number 4, set boundaries without guilt. Being okay with saying no doesn't resonate and detaching from any emotional backlash that may come as a result of that from other people. Speak and be heard. Use your voice. Use your voice. It is by far one of the most powerful tools that we have outside of our mind. And so, don't be afraid to use your voice and use it in betterment of yourself as well as betterment of others. Reframe self-doubt. Look for evidence. When your mind tells you you can't do something, or when you're starting to waffle on a decision, find evidence. Find evidence that says, yes, this is possible. You don't necessarily need to believe that it's possible for you in that moment. You just need to know that it's possible. Number 7, focus on growth and not perfection. And so look at where you are today. Look at where you were this time last year. Has there been growth? Has there been some form of transformation, evolution in any capacity? And celebrate that. And then lastly, invest in your development. Again, if we knew everything, we'd be living a boring life. You need others to come alongside you, to help you grow, sometimes to help you see where, you might be stuck in any one of the 7 that I've shared. And so with that, I do want to put it out there that I do have a couple of open coaching spots. So we're in December. So for those of you who are looking to either start to plan out your 2025 to make sure that it is your greatest year ever, or for those of you who really want to finish out 2024 strong, I have a couple of one-on-one coaching spots. Feel free to send me an email at support@SabineGedeon.com. We'll get a discovery call scheduled. And actually, I'll put the link. Actually, the link is always in the show notes, but I'll move it up just a little bit so that you have that. Let's book that discovery call. Let's figure out what are your goals, whether it's a goal that you're trying to meet at the end of this year, or something that you're looking to plan for going into 2025. So again, send me an email, support@SabineGedeon.com, or you can just book some time on my calendar. Use that link that says book a consult in the show notes, and I'll be happy to talk to you and see how I can help you. So that's what I have for you today. I'll actually wait until next week to talk about kind of next steps with regards to the show. Hopefully you've taken some key takeaways from this episode that you'll begin to apply, and, make the commitment to yourself that you're not just going to listen to this and then, not do anything with it, but, make time, go back, listen to it, pick the ones that of the 8 that I shared, pick 1 or 2 that you want to focus on, at least for the next 30 days, and then make the commitment to do that. And if you do, send me an email again at support@SabineGedeon.com. Let me know what you're going to work on. I'll be happy to provide some accountability to you via email, because I want to see you all standing in, owning, and sharing your power now and for the decades to come. With that, have a wonderful rest of the day. I will be back next week. Talk soon. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you found today's conversation helpful or got a piece of insight that you plan to implement in your life, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn @Sabine Gedeon and send me a message, or feel free to leave a review on either Apple or Spotify. I also invite you to share this episode with anyone in your network, another powerhouse possibly, who you think might benefit from today's conversation. Lastly, as always, any links, any resources, or any upcoming training is included in the show notes, so be sure to check that before you leave today. Until we chat again, have a blessed and powerful week.